In the last few videos, we talked about numbers and strings, and now in this video, I'm going to be talking about the Boolean type. And just like in the other two videos, I have this index.html open up on the right-hand side using live server, so whatever I type on the left and save will automatically be shown on the right-hand side of the page. I did this in the number video if you want to check back and figure out how exactly to set this up. So to get started, let's create our very first Boolean. We can create a variable a, we're going to set it equal to a Boolean, but you're probably thinking, what the heck is a Boolean? Because it's not really a common word that you hear very often. A Boolean is essentially a true or false value, 1 or 0, true, false, yes, no, wrong, right. It is only one of two things. And in programming, that is either true or it is false. So we can actually use the keywords true to create a Boolean with the value of true, or we can use the keyword false to set a Boolean with the value of false. And we can just print that out, console.log a, and let's do the exact same thing to log out b, and you can see we get true being printed out for a and false being printed out for b. And these are the only two values that these can have. And we can again check the type of using that nice type of keyword for both of these, and we'll see that both of these are the value Boolean because again, Booleans are either true or false, and that is it. And something important to note is if you have a string, for example, that has true inside of it, or a string that has false inside of it, this is not a Boolean. This is actually a string. And if we save, you'll see it says string here. And that's because these are wrapped inside of quotes. Booleans must be the text true or the text false, and that is the only things they can be. Now, Booleans are quite a bit different than strings, for example, or numbers, but we can't just say A plus B, because like, what is true plus false really mean? Like, that doesn't have any meaning to it. So instead, you need to use special operators in order to determine and or. So we can say, if A is true and B is true, then we want to return true. So to do that, what we do is we use double ampersands. So we're saying A and B, and this will either be true or false. And if we save this, you're going to notice we get false being printed out, and that's because B is false. To make this a little simpler, I'm going to replace A with true, and I'm going to replace B here with false, so we can see exactly what's going on. Again, we get false. So this ampersand, double ampersand here, this means and. So true and false, both of these need to be true, otherwise this is going to return false. So you can see if we change this to true, now that both of these are true, we're getting true returned. If we change this to be or, we want to say either this is true or this second one is true, we can use this double pipe operator. This stands for or. So we could say true or true is going to give us true. If one of these is false, for example, it still prints out true. But if both of these are false, then we're going to get false printed out because this is saying, is this true or is this over here true? Those are the only things that we care about with this Boolean. So instead of using, for example, plus or minus here or multiplication or division, we're using that double pipe symbol to represent or, and we're using the double and symbol to represent and. And just like with addition and subtraction and parentheses, we have an order of operations. So what's going to happen here is we're going to start from the left and go to the right. So let's just go in here. We can say true. So this is saying false and false or true. So what's going to happen is it's going to go from left to right. So we'll say false and false is going to execute first, and then we're going to have or true. And if we print that out, it's going to say true. And the reason for that is because it's going to essentially say false and false. This is going to execute and return to us false. And then what happens is we combine that with our or true over here. And this is going to be our final output, which is false or true, which eventually outputs to true. And you'll also notice something interesting. When I saved this, automatically parentheses were added around this first statement here. And that's again because of setting up prettier. And that's because it's fairly difficult to follow the order operations of all these ands and ors unless you have parentheses explicitly telling you what's happening. Because if we move these parentheses so that the second half of the statement occurs first, so for example, false or true is first, and then this and runs afterwards, and we save, we now get false being printed out because false or true is going to give us true, and then we combine false and the result of this, which is true, and false and true is going to be false. So now to give you a little bit of practice with this, I want you to create two variables. The first variable we're going to call happy, and I want you to set that equal to true because hopefully you're happy. And I want you to create another variable called fun, which you also set to the value of true because hopefully this is also fun. And then I want you to print out happy and fun to see what the output of that is going to be. So I'm going to give you a second to do that, pause the video, and then I'm going to show you how it's done. So hopefully you took a chance to do that. And we're going to first start out by creating happy, which is equal to true. We're going to create here fun, which is also equal to true. And then I want to log this out. So we're going to take happy and fun, and we want to see what the output of this is going to be. And since both of these are true, we know that true and true should equal true because they are both equal to true. And if we save, we get the output of true just as we would expect. But if for some reason this isn't fun and this was false, we're going to get the output of false because then again, happy is true, but fun here is actually set to false. And we know that true and false always equals false. They both must be true when we're using and when we use or, only one of them needs to be true. So if we used or here, it is now outputting true to us because at least one of these operations is true. Now the last thing that we can do with these outputs here with Booleans is actually invert a Boolean. So let's just go to say only happy here. And what we can do is we can output happy, which we know is true. But what if we want to invert this? We want the opposite of happy. Well, we can put an exclamation point in front of our variable here. And what this does is it takes our Boolean and it inverts it. So now we're going to have false. And if we do this again with another exclamation point, it's going to do the inversion twice. So it's going to invert happy once to false, and then it's going to invert it again back to true, as you can see here. So having these exclamation points is really useful for when you have a variable, but you want to check for the opposite of that variable. In our case, the opposite of happy is going to be false. So when we save, we get that false here. And that's pretty much everything that you need to know about Booleans. In the next video, we're going to be covering the last two types of variable types you need to know, which are null and undefined. They're very similar, so I can't wait to see you in that next video.